Has been a very difficult year for the real estate sector. The start of the year was dismal, with sales of homes coming or dropping every quarter. Inventory piling up and new project launches dropping in some cities to half. In fact, I've never really seen sentiments as down as they were in the first 5 months of 2014 calendar year for the sector, not even in the aftermath of the Lehman crisis. Hope and optimism returned with the coming of a new government and with a historic majority. The finance minister brought back smiles to the face of the industry participants by including housing as an area of focus for the government. Tax break limits on interest on home loans were raised, bank financing for affordable homes was eased up, and the goal of housing for all was emphasized. SEBI did its bit by giving a go-ahead to listing of REITs in India. Yet, 6 months hence, the action is missing. The sector continues to struggle. It's yet to claw its way out of a definite slowdown. Hopes are far from being realized. The question is, are we worrying too much? Are there early signs of a demand recovery? Can we hope for a strong demand outlook for real estate in 2015? Let's find out as we step into the new year from our experts today, Baman R. Irani, CMD Rustomji and VP MCHI Credai, Sanjay Dutt, Executive Managing Director South Asia Cushman and Wakefield India, Ritesh Vora, Partner Real Estate, IDFC Alternatives, C Sharma, VC and MD, Sobha Developers Limited and Vice President, Credai Bangalore, Rajiv Talwar, Group Executive Director, DLF, and Nishant Singhal, Promoter and Director, Strategy Investor Clinic. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. As we go through the discussion, some figures which tell you what happened in 2014 will flash on the screen. But I think the larger question is, how are we stepping into 2015? Winds of change, are they blowing? As I just read a report, inflation is down, house price, that's a big component of house price. That's come down to lowest level. We're also hearing that property buyers are back in force just a little bit. Let's start with the Mumbai market. Baman, what do you feel? I remember speaking with you about 6 months ago when we looked at the Mumbai discussion and or just Mumbai real estate market, and you said things are beginning to look good. But 6 months later, they aren't as good as we hoped for, isn't it?
Well, Manisha, the strategies that have been taken up by certain developers is definitely bearing fruit. You've seen that, even the commercial real estate demand is high in a place like Mumbai. Residential in the affordable bracket, that is to say, ticket price being what the consumer can afford, is seeing a good amount of inquiry. As a matter of fact, certain pre-launches by developers have seen extremely good, volumes traded by them, or flats actually purchased by end users. While the sentiment on the investor side is extremely low at this moment, but on the actual user side is extremely high. And I would like to say, Manisha, actually the Mumbai market is doing a lot better. And in the year 2015, with the state government, going ahead and easing up a lot of the we're looking forward to easing up a lot of the approval processes. You will see a very good healthy supply coming in the market, and this healthy supply will also add to the consumer interest, because the consumer will then get a varied choice. And areas that they have been waiting for a long time, a lot of projects have been announced but have not taken off. And once they take off, then the end users of those projects will also start making a beeline towards those projects. And I think 2015, the first quarter may not exactly be the best, but starting the second quarter, that is to say, in the calendar year, starting from March, I do see a healthy demand growing in the Mumbai market as such.
Okay. Mr. Sharma, you, of course, in Bangalore have had it easier than the rest of the country because you didn't have so many investors in the market anyway to drive up prices to irrational levels. It's been slightly easier. The downturn hasn't been felt as strongly in Bangalore, but then yet every developer has accepted that sales did slow down quite a bit in 2014. Now, are you beginning to get those inquiries that we hear about? And how would you, let's say, put it? Is it to the levels of 2011-12, or do you think that it will take a while before you get there?
Manisha, in the beginning you articulated very well. We did believe that 2014 will be a year of turnaround and hope. Somewhere, as far as the operational performance is concerned, India as a whole has disappointed as far as our numbers are concerned. We do believe that primarily it is on account of lower than expected performance from the largest market, which is NCR and the Mumbai market. In the southern market also, the Chennai market has not been doing well, whereas the Bangalore market has been holding on very well, both on the commercial real estate as well as from the real estate residential perspective. We also believe that we could have done much better because the number of launches have been quite a bit. We also believe that this year we have been responsible enough in keeping the prices affordable. So with the prices being affordable, with inquiry levels remaining very high and an actual user-driven market, Bangalore still could have done much better than 2014 as it is ending now. But it is just like the hope remains, maybe the darkness before the dawn sort of a thing. So 2015 is definitely expected to be a much better year, and the ground realities could not have been what we have expected better than that. Everything is falling in place. It is just a question of demand coming back, and should happen maybe with the interest rates coming down and the budget giving us some kind of a further fiscal incentives.
Okay, fair enough. So you're saying that you can see light at the end of the tunnel, and very, very soon. Rajiv Talwar, NCR Market, all data and facts point out to the fact that this was the most stressed market. Of course, we also have a huge community of investors, and that's probably the reason it took the biggest knock. What about the NCR market? Do you think the pain that this market fell is going to take a longer time to run its course before it starts rebounding?
No, I think that there are already positive signs. There's traction in the commercial leasing space, which means that the economy is on the go, is on the rise. And once that happens, then it takes a little bit of a time gap before the residential demand picks up. And I'm sure, as Bowman very well said in the Mumbai market too, that yes, I think beginning the new financial year, which is FY16, that's the second quarter of the next calendar year, I think we should see much healthier sales, and we should see many, many more launches in the NCR market. As you are well aware that there is a large inventory which is to be handed over. In fact, we alone as a company are handing over in the year 13, 14 and 15 calendar years, maybe the first quarter of 16 too, calendar year, about 61 million square feet. So I don't think there's a dearth of demand. It is very true that the demand would be much higher in the affordable sections, but I'm sure it will cut across all segments, and we're going to see, with the government taking many, many steps, as you've listed out before, as are now becoming visible more and more in the REITs market and in the infrastructure investment trusts, plus funding of the infrastructure as announced by the Reserve Bank of India, I think we will see a general move up in the economy and the rate of growth. That should only augur well for home buyers, whether anywhere in India, and especially the NCR region. All
right, Sanjay Dutt, developers always optimistic, and that they have to be, isn't it? But if I look at the figures in front of me, look at the steep fall in absorption, 14 to 37% are the kind of figures floating around across cities in India. There is, as Rajiv Talwar said, a huge amount of inventory which still needs to be absorbed. So you sum it all for us and tell us what are the good reasons to hope for a home buyer, even an investor who's been locked in and his property isn't going anywhere. What is 2015 going to offer him?
I think, Manisha, the only disagreement that I have with the majority here is I do believe while there will be traction, commercial is bouncing back, and there is enough signs from the government, from the central government bodies, that this law is going to create into some traction for housing sector and real estate sector on the whole. But I think all of this will bring enough traction towards the fourth quarter of 2015. So I think what you see on the ground today is going to continue till June, the first half of next year. And while all the good steps and measures, and the government will be conscious and will announce a budget which will bring more traction to the economy, will eventually lead to good results by the second half, and more likely to be towards the fourth quarter of next year. Okay. And this is purely because of lead time that it takes before the policies and initiatives actually translate into results on the ground.
Nishant, what's your view? You actually are in touch with the buyers. Do you think that it's just inquiries, or do you think these inquiries are actually turning into deals getting executed and sealed at the ground level?
So I would talk about the NCR market specifically. In December 2013, we clocked our highest ever sales of 1800 transactions in a month, which was worth about 900 crores. Till July, this volume came down from 1800 to about 900 units per month. And in October, it again went up to around 1200 units. So I agree with majority of panelists here that there is definitely a pickup. What I want to stress on is that this inventory built up indicates one clear trend, that it was very easy to raise cash flows from new sales for developers. So you saw a lot of new launches, and developers were collecting 20-25%. Because of fall in new launches, developers have realized that the only way to raise cash flows is now to construct, to build what they have already sold. So what has happened over last 18 months is that you will see all developers concentrating on construction and delivery what they have sold in last 3 years. I know only 5 developers in NCR who would be delivering 60,000 to 80,000 units in next 1 year, which is a very, very good sign, which brings a lot of stability to the market and makes the market ready for next boom in coming 24 months.
All right, so we will come back and examine the figures that you've given are extremely interesting. So yes, there's been a cycle in terms of apartments sold, but you're saying that there's been a fall in new launches, and the only way for developers to go is to construct what they've already sold, and that's the way they're going to get the money. Though, of course, it's a larger question that it still gets stopped when 90% of the money is in and construction's only 50% done. Ritesh Vora, what's your own take? I mean, on the deal street, things haven't been so bad. Suddenly, there are great deals available for all investors, PE investors and debt investors. Look at it any other way. They've never had a better year than 2014 to actually be able to drive hard negotiations with developers. What's the turnaround you see in 2015, and how soon?
Manisha, I probably don't share the level of enthusiasm and optimism that's going around here at the moment, primarily because I think, there is a fair amount of pain that has been built into the system in terms of the inventory levels that are there in most markets, maybe except for Bangalore. And I think, while the macroeconomic framework with the new government, with the new budget, hopefully with, a better growth number, etc., is likely to be in place over the next few months, I think what needs to be done is probably that we as an industry also needs to look at ourselves and see whether we are putting in place the building blocks that are required for a sustained recovery in this particular sector. So, I think primarily there are two things. The fact that the residential real estate sector in most markets is in a logjam is because of the affordability issue. And affordability is primarily because A, prices are high, and B, income levels are not going up. And unless and until that gets resolved, I think it's going to be a while before we see the markets coming back to any sort of buoyant absorption levels. For PE investors, while it may be a good time to drive bargains and get good deals, ultimately we have to realize that our cash flows have to come from customers. People have to go out and buy those apartments. They have to put down the money that's required for the down payments and get those home loans. And only then will the business actually see substantial cash flows through which PE investors and lenders can actually get paid. So fundamental to our success is the success of the business. You can't have a situation where PE investors are making a lot of money, but the real estate business is not. I mean, that could happen, but that will be successful or valid only for a very short period of time. Okay. So I think, fundamentally the business cash flows have to improve, for which I think there needs to be some behavioral change from the developer community, from the investor community, which hopefully, one is hoping that will come into place over the next few months if the pain continues to be there.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to take a quick break. We've got the opening comments from everybody, but then I think the larger question that we need to ask is, what is the price point at which buyers will come back into the market? Definitely, everybody's talking about the fact that affordable housing will be the flavor of the season. Now, affordability is different for a poor man to a middle-class home to, let's say, a high net worth investor. So what is it that will actually be the one which will sell? What should developers be launching? And also the larger question, what happened to prices in 2014? Which way are they headed in 2015? Because that's exactly what you want to know, isn't it, when it comes to Outlook 2015 on real estate. Stay with us. We just established on how difficult 2014 was for the real estate sector. Residential markets of top 6 cities were extremely volatile. Both demand and supply were not something to write home about. New launches fell and all of that. Now 2015, we are facing that. What happens? Investors, of course, who got locked out in markets as NCR haven't been able to find an exit or make the humongous profits that they had been used to. Some markets like Bangalore have always been stable and continue to remain stable. Some markets like Chennai was so dull, one was wondering where real estate is going. So it's a market for end users. Are we establishing that it's the end game for investors in real estate? The days are just gone. I think that's the larger question which needs to be asked. Nishant, over to you first. No longer a game for the investor who was used to that 17-18%, a retail investor who had got used to mouth-watering returns in real estate.
To some extent, I agree that people used to make they used to just put in 30% and they used to get out of the assets within 6 to 9 months. So that game is definitely not there in the market. But what you are seeing is a buyer's paradise. Inventory pile up, unsold stock of 48 months. It's a perfect buyer's paradise. So while everybody is talking from developer's perspective, if we look at it from buyer's perspective, it is a perfect timing for an end user to get in the market and buy their dream home. What developers are clearly saying today is, if you see the subvention prices, specifically in NCR, that developers are ready to offer the rates which were prevalent 18 to 24 months back, and they are just adding the cost of finance of last 2 years and they are offering the same rate to buyers, which is very, very fair. And you know, if today buyers get into these assets, construction is already 50 to 60% done, so they are taking much lesser risk as compared to the risk which people took around 24 months back in pre-launches. So what I would say is that 2015 is a buyer's paradise for at least next 9 to 12 months. Take your buying decision.
Okay, Nishant has said everything that has made at least all the developers on the panel smile a little bit. But Rajiv Talwar, I mean, really, so we've driven out all the investors in the NCR market, haven't we? Now, at least 2014 has worked very well to mellow the expectations from real estate. Now, my big question is, it was one of the favored asset classes for Indians, wasn't it?
Yep.
It's lost that glory.
It hasn't. It's still the biggest financial and social security. And therefore, it will remain the same. Yes, the greater the supply, the more moderate the prices, growth in prices will be moderate, and therefore the returns will not be, as you had said, huge returns, but they will always be there, because eventually it's a licensed sector and licensing somehow keeps shortage of supply. And that's what accounts for the main increases. If supply opens up, if new areas open up, new launches come in, I'm sure prices will be stable, and that's very good for both end users as well as investors who are now hoping for a long-term gain and not a short-term increase.
Long-term gain. Now, the only thing is, when you're looking at stock markets which are giving you fabulous returns and wondering where to put your money, Baman, real estate isn't figuring at a very fancy place right now. Are we actually saying that, look, real estate has become an extremely high net worth investor game? Maybe if REITs get listed, if not in 2015, by the end of it, that's the way for them to go. Just buying a flat and hoping it will give you 14-15% plus returns and sitting on a hard asset, that game is definitely over.
Well, Manisha, actually, you're asking the question in too many parts, but let me answer you this way. Exactly what Rajiv said. Real estate will continue to stay an important part of any investor's portfolio. And just because at one point of time in an immature market there were some very fancy returns doesn't mean that those going away will take away the luster from the industry. Now, as far as I'm concerned, my view is that the investor has to undergo a change, either reduce his expectation and start investing over a longer term. The speculative 6 months, 9 months, 1.5 year kind of investment in real estate really